Herbert has the entire pit area on notice that he intends to repeat that world championship. But young Rhonda Hartman has her ride pumping hard.
Hartman leaves Herbert at the starting line. Problems for the world champion. Hartman has her revenge.
Unbelievable. Rhonda Hartman has set down the world champ with a 5:36 and serves notice.
We move on to our next pair. This is Bobby Lagana, who has been racing fuel cars for more than 20 years, but only 3 at Top Fuelers. His opponent, Doug Foxworth from Lytle, Texas, with a victory in '94.
Doug Foxworth brought some extra ammunition to the event this weekend. Gene, the Snowman Snow, former IHRA world champion, is acting as crew chief on the Bobby Rex machine.
2 years ago, Foxworth was a factor in a 4-way battle for the world championship. He's coming off a disappointing year by his own heady standards, while Bobby Lagana is a throwback. The only driver in the field who brings his 5,500 horsepower machine to the racetrack on an open trailer.
54-year-old Bobby Lagana stages first against the younger Texan. Reaction times all important.
Foxworth, the quickest qualifier in the field. Lagana the slowest. And Lagana has trouble right off the starting line. It's an easy walkover for Foxworth.
Foxworth with a 5:37 elapsed time serves notice to Rhonda Hartman that he's running the same ET. One more look at it will show Bobby Lagana breaking the blower belt as he came off the starting line. You can see by the white puffs of smoke something is drastically wrong, and he wasted a beautiful 4:86 reaction time.
There the crew examines the remains. And we move on to our next pair. Up out of the water box, warming the slicks, comes Jim Bailey from Mantua, Ohio. His opponent, Richard Langston, the 1993 IHRA world champion.
Langston actually went into retirement after winning the '93 championship, or at least stopped racing. He did attend one event at Tulsa, Oklahoma last year, but did not qualify.
Now, if that profile looks familiar, that is Swamp Rat 34, developed by the legend Don Garlits, who then sold the chassis to Langston. The casino operator from Carson City, Nevada, wants desperately to regain his world championship.
As a matter of fact, a closer look, you'll find Don Garlits as the crew chief, but right now you're on board with Jim Bailey as we approach the staging beam.
And Langston rolls right into position. As you see, Bailey in the far lane has chosen to stop short. Now he rolls in.
This is the center of the field. The number 4 and 5 qualifiers. It's a coin toss.
With more than 10,000 horses singing together, Bailey draws away. Problems for Langston.
Langston was out first, but Bailey with a 5:32. Apparently 5:30s is what the Darlington track has in it today. Let's have one more look at it. You can see the good lead right there by Richard Langston, but now he starts falling behind. Jim Bailey takes hard control. One bank is down on the Langston dragster, and he tosses a blower belt at about the 600-foot mark. It was all over right there.
Now we ride along. 0 to 260 miles an hour in 5.3 seconds with Jim Bailey. Now, David Grubnick had a solo in his matchup with Bobby Baldwin, so he will meet Rhonda Hartman in the semifinals, while Doug Foxworth will go up against Jim Bailey. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. You couldn't ask for a better day for drag racing as the silver anniversary season of the International Hot Rod Association begins at the All-Pro Auto Parts Winternationals.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Welcome to Darlington International Dragway. There's much that is new in the IHRA for 1995, including a new National Series sponsor in Snap-on Tools. But some things have not changed, and the importance of Darlington is one of them. The IHRA celebrates its 25th anniversary this year, and for 23 of those years, they have been coming to Darlington. We have a tremendous turnout of professional class racers, and the numbers they've been posting have been staggering. Let's learn more now with a man who will share the announce booth with me again this year. Here's Ted Jones.
Well, Bob, without question, all the excitement is down here in the pro stock pit area. Why? This man came out yesterday afternoon, Doug Kirk, two-time IHRA world champion, and turned an incredible 6.800. Now, everyone was sure Saturday night during the Night of Fire he would back that up, but they weren't ready for what happened. He came out of the chute and laid down an incredible 6.77 with the 5 to establish a new International Hot Rod Association world record and the fastest run ever in the history of drag racing for a mountain motor pro stock car. So right now, Doug Kirk is definitely the points leader.
677, you bet. Here's a look at our post-time weather conditions. 69 degrees, 61% humidity. But the important figure for drag racers, barometric pressure. The higher the better, and we are seeing record numbers this weekend at Darlington. This ESPN Speed World presentation is brought to you by Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life. And by the more than 1,000 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the best parts in auto parts. The 1995 season is underway. We'll be back with Pro Stock quarterfinals in just a moment. Welcome back. The first race of the year is always important to race fans, but particularly so when it happens in as beautiful a place as the Piedmont region of South Carolina. Bob Barsha and Ted Jones with you for the All-Pro Auto Parts Winternationals. Here's Brett Kepner with a closer look at a very difficult racetrack.
Darlington International Dragway is brand new concrete launch pads. They extend about 150 feet off the starting line. The point at which the concrete meets the regular racing asphalt, referred to as the transition point by most drag racers, is even and smooth. However, it's the asphalt ramp that follows the concrete that has been giving a lot of drivers problems in qualifying. If you can make it past this transition point, you'll fly. There's no question about it. The air and the track are here. But with the Pro Stock and Pro Mod drivers, many of them are making their third gear shift right at the end of this pad, and that's causing the tires to break loose. The top fuel drivers may have the same problem, but it's going to make for an interesting race, and this could be the big equalizer.
All right, thank you, Brett. Now, before we get to quarterfinal action in Pro Stock, let's take you back to round one. There is Terry Walters out of Roanoke, Virginia. And this was his first pass of eliminations going up against Steve Williford from Englehart, South Carolina.
A very experienced driver on the I-Cherry Trail. Walters completely out of shape, got in the groove about the same what Roy Hill did a year ago, slams up against the guardrail, up on the top of the car, and skids to a halt as you see the liquid coolant pouring out of the radiator.
Very reminiscent of Roy Hill's big crash here 1 year ago. Inside the car, Terry Walters moving around.
Let's look one more time at it and see if we can establish exactly what happened to Terry Walters. The front end actually starts to come off the ground now. He'll overcorrect slightly, and that's the fatal mistake. The car gets out of hand. Remember, we're 180 miles an hour, 190 across the finish line. Now, as he gets sideways, the car's not engineered to go that direction. He turns over, actually gets airborne up in the air. He has no control of the car whatsoever. All he can do at this point is hang on and ride it out.
Williford passed through unscathed. Body parts shed off of the car, losing energy as it grinds to a stop on its roof, but that roll cage remains intact. Terry Walters, a very lucky man. Here's Brett Kepner on the scene.
Where'd I pick all the dirt?
You all right?
Yes, so far I am.
You know, all the people that have cheered for you for so many years as the ultimate underdog in this class, back-to-back 680s in qualifying that I think even surprised you. This thing went 696 at 182 on the roof.
Yeah, it was on a good pass, but right at the end it just took off. And now's a bad time to be scrapping my junk.
How bad is this going to hurt the operation? I know it's only a minute, but
For being an independent, this will wipe me out for this year.
And that is bad news for Terry Walters. Ironically, he won that matchup. It was a wild first round all in all in Pro Stock. Take a look at John Noble against Mike Bell as Bell crosses the center line just past half track.
Bell gets out of the groove and starts to lose the car, has to keep it straight, lifts and pulls the parachute. That's because he's a professional driving instructor.
Just as I hit the brakes, you were right in front of me. I was like, Dan, you went and pulled the chute. And I see the chute come out. I pulled the chute and I pulled all the way out. I almost ran into the chute.
As soon as I pulled it in high gear, it broke loose.
Started.
And it come around. When I brought it back, I didn't want to overcorrect it.
No.
Come over.
You figured
And if I had
John will see me.
it would have went right on the cross.
Oh, damn.
Well, can you tell that John Noble is from the New York City area? We move on to the quarterfinal action in Pro Stock. There is Harold Denton, the first Pro Stock in the sixes at this racetrack back in 1991. Coming off an off year, no finals at all in 1994. In the far lane, Greg Hankinson from Granville, Ohio, a two-time finalist last year.
Hankinson out first with a 5:07 reaction time. Really great for a pro stocker, but watch the old experienced pro. Denton plows past him with a 6:88 to pick up the victory.
What a top-end charge by Harold Denton in the party time Pontiac Firebird. Now here's Robert Patrick at just 24 years of age, runner-up in the World Championship last year. And here is the man who helped him learn how to drive these cars, Roy Hill from Sophia, North Carolina, owner of a drag racing driver's school. Here's what happened to him a year ago at this event. Watch the near lane as he gets out of shape, locks up the brakes to avoid hitting the man next to him, and then takes flight.
Over the guardrail, tumbles around, comes back over the guardrail, a more violent crash than Terry Walters had.
Now let's watch as Roy Hill feels the car getting out from underneath him before he hits top gear.
Roy Hill actually looking around to see what's going on as he tumbles over the guardrail and then back over onto the racetrack. The cool professionalism of an old pro.
Roy Hill came back with this race car and won twice in 1994. He was also runner-up twice. The 1978 winner of Pro Stock here at the Winternationals at Darlington.
But Robert Patrick in that quality care Ford also picked up 2 victories last year. Both cars with 810 cubic inch John Causey mountain motors.
Great lead for the youngster Robert Patrick, who hangs a tree on his Mentor and outdrives him to the finish.
Indeed, Roy Hill went quicker with a 683, but it was the whole shot by Patrick that got the job done.
Here's another look as Roy Hill on the left carries the front wheels to the end of that concrete launch pad. You don't often see that in Pro Stock, but by then Patrick had checked out. Down on the big end, Brett Kepner was there to meet him.
400th hole shot, you're 85 over his 83.
Well, you know, I knew that was going to be a tough round. This track's really been tricky this weekend, and the Ford Quality Care Mustang has really been running. And
now that that's out of the way, what did you say to Roy before the round?
So I'm coming to get him.
Got it. Yeah, that's right, Professor. Robert Patrick came and got you. There is the Ford Mustang of Charlie Peppers from Auburn, Georgia, and there is the man everybody's talking about, hard at work in his office, Doug Kirk, the 1993 champion from Lenore, West Virginia, who not only reset the Pro Stock National ET mark with that pass at 677 with a 5, that also becomes the track ET mark, and he also went 205 to reset the track top speed mark.
Now, Kirk is up against Charlie Peppers, and don't sell Peppers short. The 52-year-old veteran's been drag racing a lot longer than Kirk has, and he qualified number 8.
Kirk at work, great big shift lever there. There's a look down track as Kirk moves along, and it's a red light start for Peppers.
Look at the reaction time for Doug Kirk, a 378. Now, he would have red lighted too, except the tree only accepts the first red light. Charlie Peppers pulls in. He knows that Kirk has him ET'd, so he decides to take a shot on the tree, and hey, he lost. That's drag racing.
The reaction time is measured from the yellow light to the green. 0.4 of a second. A 400 light is perfect. Both drivers were under it here.
Boy, does this look like the Doug Kirk of 1991. I mean, let's face it, last year wasn't kind to this guy, but now it's like Doug Kirk Nationals time.
I just tell you what, I just hope we can put 2 more runs together today.
This is like walking on eggs here.
I tell you what, there's just, it's so competitive. I mean, anything can happen.
Well, as an example, Charlie Peppers took a shot on the light, obviously, and anybody would after the numbers you've been running, but he went 690, he went 682. He could have actually gotten, lucky there.
There is no slouches here today. I mean, this is anybody. The guy that can make the smoothest 4 runs here is going to win today.
No question about that. Harold Denton will have lane choice in his semifinal matchup with John Noble, and Doug Kirk will decide who goes in what lane when he meets Robert Patrick. We've got a timeout straight ahead. When we return, we'll have our first look at Pro Modified for 1995. Welcome back to Darlington, South Carolina, where the sun is getting low as a full day of IHRA drag racing action continues here at the Winternationals. Let's go back to Saturday night. Watch the guy in the left lane, the killer red tomato of 4-time Pro Modified champion Scotty Cannon.
He's on a run. He already ran a 6:55, and he set the world on its air with a 6:51, a new world record.
But it didn't help him in the first round of Pro Modified against the 37 Chevy of Fred Hahn.
Well, the late night hours took their toll. Scotty Cannon was laid off the line. He went quicker, but Freddie Hahn pulled out the victory with a 680.
Now we move on to quarterfinal action of Pro Modified. There is Pat Moore from Vienna, Ohio, in a 68 Camaro with 698 cubic inches of normally aspirated Pontiac. There's Carl Moyer, two-time winner in 1994 out of Ankeny, Iowa. There on the left, former NBA star, now a full-time Pro Modified car owner, Larry Nance.
Larry Nance had the whole pit area buzzing just before the start of the race when they were talking about Air Jordan coming out of retirement. Nance commented, "That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do that too."
Whatever lies in Larry Nance's future, he loves his drag racing. And look at this pristine number. A 38 Chevy, 706 cubic inches of Pontiac power under the hood.
The Musco Lighted sponsored car purging the nitrous oxide system. That's what appears to be steam coming up in front of the front windshield. The idea is to put cold nitrous oxide right up there to the injectors.
In a normally aspirated engine, you can run nitrous oxide for a power boost. You could also use a supercharged power plant, but without nitrous. There is the launch. Great starting line reaction for both drivers. Moore with the advantage at half track.
Pat Moore picks up the win because he left the line first with a fantastic 4:51 reaction time. We've got to look at that one more time. Carl Moyer actually went 100th of a second quicker, but look at Moore off the starting line, cat-like reflexes. That's why he was the 1989 Top Sportsman World Champion.
Moore 1/100th of a second quicker at the green light. Boy, that was a drag race. Now let's take a timeout, get caught up on all things technical. Here is Brett Kepner with this week's Track Facts.
Drag racing is a sport of innovation. There's no question about that. But Pro Mod standout Tommy Gray Jr. has a piece of equipment here at the Winternationals that you got to see to believe. What does that look like? Hard to decipher when you first see it. Believe it or not, that's a series of small light-emitting diodes that are aimed directly at the driver's face that are shift lights inside Tommy Gray's helmet. Believe it or not, when the car reaches a certain RPM, in Tommy's case about 7,500 or so on the 4-speed transmission-equipped Corvette, these lights come on like this and tell Tommy when to pull the gears. Now, for years, racers have used a unit called a shift light or a pro light on the dashboard that also does the same job, directing a bright light at the driver while he's going down the racetrack. And in the sportsman ranks, some of the more enterprising racers are actually using U.S. Air Force technology with display graphics being shot into the inside of their visor. This little unit is handmade, though. It's not very high dollar in any respect, and it helps Tommy drive the car. Interestingly, the IHRA tech officials are thinking about banning Tommy's helmet at the next event because they say it violates the rule of no electronic devices on the driver's person in the car. Right now, Tommy's fighting that rule after all. Spent a lot of time making this little thing.
All right, thank you, Brett. And there is Tommy Gray in his 94 Corvette, 706 cubic inches of Pontiac V8. And his opponent, a fine example of the supercharged option in Pro Modified racing. This is Chuck Peterson from Dakota Dunes, South Dakota, in his 1970 Chevelle.
1970, the last year to be considered nostalgia, incidentally, so he gets the advantage of that weight break with a 70 Chevelle, the most popular year for the Chevelle. Now, he's limited to 526 cubic inches because of the bore, whereas Tommy Gray is allowed to go to 710 cubic inches on nitrous oxide.
You make a good point, Ted. He gets to weigh 100 pounds less because of that nostalgia bodywork. This should be an interesting matchup.
Gray won the 1994 President's Cup up at Budds Creek, Maryland last year, so he's no stranger to the victory circle.
Chuck Peterson won the Dixie Nitrous Nationals, contested over a 1/8 mile drag strip. He should have good reactions. But it's Gray who gets the whole shot marginally on Peterson. Peterson drives around him.
Peterson ET'ing with a 663 to pull out the victory.
Let's watch. This is close.
Yes, indeed it is, because right off the starting line, Gray had the advantage. However, it's hard to beat the horsepower of that big humper as it starts moving air down the 526 cubic inch cylinders to pull out the win.
Chuck Peterson is one of the few Pro Mod drivers that involves his operation in extensive wintertime testing, and this thing was flying down at their little secret track in Texas. It's doing it again, buddy. 663. I almost feel sorry for poor Tommy Gray. Career best 666. He left on you, but you drove around and got him by 7/1000ths of a second to the finish line.
Pays to practice. Pays to practice. I tell you what, I can't say enough for these guys who have been working their tails off since Christmas. And I mean 7 days a week, and the crew has done a great job. We've got a lot of little problems to work out, but it's going to be a good year.
We move on to our next pair. In the near lane, Fred Hahn returning to full-time competition in the IHRA. In the far lane, Ed Burnley in a 94 Chevy Camaro.
Fred Hahn with another great hole shot, but something broke on the car. Ed Burnley gets a temporary reprieve with a 670, 205 miles per hour.
Now on to our final pair. In the near lane, three-time runner-up in 1994, Chris Hunt. And in the far lane, Tommy Mooney.
Tommy Mooney with the nostalgia car of former Pro Stock World Champion. Identical reaction time. Look at that car move on top end. A 659. Check that out, Scotty Cannon.
Well, once upon a time, the nostalgia bodywork was all show and no go. Now there are three of them in the semifinals. Moore will meet Burnley, Mooney against Peterson in Pro Mod. We'll change our fuel over to alcohol, and the alcohol funny cars, the Fluffers, make their 1995 debut. Stay with us. We are back at the International Hot Rod Association Snap-on Tools All-Pro Winternationals from Darlington International Dragway. Bob Barsha, Ted Jones, glad to have you with us. Alcohol funny cars are up now, and there is the world champion with that big green number 1 on the side, Ohio farmer Mark Thomas.
Well, he's back up to his old tricks again. Qualified number 1 with a 607. Who can stop this guy?
Well, not Bill Naves, who was supposed to meet him in this round. Naves was a no-show, apparently a mechanical problem. It's a solo pass for Thomas, and a good one.
But he slowed to a 610, so that could be problems.
Now in the near lane is Doug Hearsum from Lyle, Ontario, Canada. 91 Old Cutlass bodywork. Lots of great alcohol racers come from north of the border. In the other lane, Butch Kernodle from Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Butch Kernodle's been racing with the International Hot Rod Association since its very inception. A 52-year-old, very well-experienced pilot.
Cars all supercharged, all running on very cool burning alcohol. Whoa, the front wheels come up in the far lane for Kernodle, but he's ahead at half track. Now he gets wild and still wins.
What a driving job by Butch Kernodle. Experience pays off. A great reaction time, a 624 ET. Wheels up off the starting line. Watch this guy drive this funny car.
Slowly drawing away to half track, and then right there, got off on the marbles on the left, slides back to the right, keeps his foot in it, straightens her up, and wins. Great driving job. Now here's Dennis Bedrosian, 42-year-old driver from Flemington, New Jersey. Let's go back to the first round. Carl Ruth in the left lane with that beautiful 56 Crown Victoria. But watch the right lane as Bedrosian uncorks a record.
And a great wheel stand by Carl Ruth in that old 56 Ford. Bedrosian, a 596, almost took the world record, but took the track record.
In fact, he took both ends of it, both ET and speed. Now here's Jimmy Rector, who was supposed to meet Dennis Bedrosian in this round. He has broken. It'll be a single for Bedrosian.
We'll find out if that 596 was a fluke. He qualified with a 616 tire spin coming off, so there's no way on this run, although he did go fairly straight, a 643.
I don't need to tell you the run was a joke.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was a mess. We switched feet, blew the tires right off it, and I pedaled it, tried to recover it just to get lane choice for next round. We lost it, but it's not over yet. It's not over yet.
The question is, was it set up for another shot like the first round?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't change anything. We're not foolish. We wanted to do the same thing. In fact, we wanted to get the national record, but not this time. Next time.
Well, he nearly got it, Bob. That national record is 595. He was only 100th off.
And there's young Todd Payton. Well, Todd getting older by the day. He turns 26 today. Former alcohol funny car world champion. In the near lane is his opponent, Vaughn Smith from Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
This is the number 3 and the number 6 qualifiers. Payton qualified with a 614. He's got the act put together. Former world champion. Could get back on top. Vaughn Smith will want to run as Payton has problems. A 616 for Vaughn Smith. We'll look one more time to see exactly what happened to the former world champion because he was on a comeback run. He gets crooked coming off of that pad right along that yellow disqualification line. He had to lift. He didn't have any choice, Bob.
6:16 on this track. You're the only guy that got down in this round other than Mark Thomas.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're just trying to get something, get a handle on it. I mean, this thing's all new from the ground up, and everybody working together, everybody's doing a good job. I'll give it to my crew because, you know, without them, you can't be there. I know it's been said before, but they keep it going. I mean, it's just that simple.
Well, the quicker ET will give Von Smith lane choice in his matchup with Butch Kernodle. Mark Thomas will have the same when he meets new record man Dennis Bedrosian in the semifinals of Alcohol Funny Car. We have a huge crowd on hand here at Darlington enjoying the action. While we have a moment, here's this year's first edition of Drag Review with Brett Kepner.
The biggest news here at the season opening 1995 Snap-on Tools Series event is not necessarily who qualified, but indeed who failed to make the cut in their respective professional category. In all four pro divisions, there were remarkable numbers of drivers who have, quote, shot themselves in the feet, end quote, in this very first event. Let's face it, at the first race of the year, any ground a driver can gain in the form of round wins could mean a big turnaround in the World Championship points battle at the end of the season. Top Fuel Eliminator, for example. Past national event winner Butch Blair, Jack Ostrander, newcomer Jerry Freeman, who was so impressive last year, all failed to make the cut in that category. In Pro Modified Eliminator, Bill Coolman, the man who won this event one season ago in the Summit Racing Equipment Supercharged Corvette, a winter's worth of work down the drain when he failed to make the 6.80-second bump spot. In Pro Stock Eliminator, a couple of drivers who didn't need the extra aggravation of not qualifying in this field are already counting the options that they have to gain points somewhere else, and it's going to take an awful lot of them. Indeed, at this particular point in the season, it may be early, but it also may be getting late already. That's this edition of Drag Review.
All right, thanks very much, Brett. No question, Darlington is key in the IHRA series. We'll talk about that a little more in just a moment. Welcome back to a perfect spring afternoon at the IHRA All-Pro Auto Parts Winternationals at Darlington, South Carolina. Coming up, semifinal action in Top Fuel Dragster. There is David Grubnick from Acton, California, a marketing executive in the entertainment industry, originally from Brisbane, Australia. He singled in the first round, so we're not quite sure what he can do. But he's going to have to call on everything he's got right now because he's going up against Rhonda Hartman.
Hartman, who won Rookie of the Year last year and picked up 2 victories in doing it, is really on a roll running consistent 530s. Meanwhile, the car in the other lane, driven by Grubnick, is owned by Chris McGee, who invented the McGee engine. He's still trying to get the bugs out of it.
It uses overhead cams to eliminate push rods. If it's not working to its optimum right now, it'll be Hartman.
Rhonda Hartman, another mid-530 run, 537 with a nice 531 reaction time. As we watch the replay on this, you can see there's plenty of traction off the line, coming off the pad, down to about the 300-foot mark, but then Rhonda Hartman hazes the tires, feathers it out just a little bit, back on the loud pedal, drives it to victory.
I'll tell you, if you could have started this way last year, just imagine.
Yeah, I think I have a lot more experience this year on this track than last year. Last year I know it moved around a lot, and I would shut it off to be safe, but this year I know how to drive it, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, anybody can get down this track with 30s that consistently is pretty amazing.
We've been real consistent all weekend, and that's what's going to win a race.
You're the only person that made 3 laps in qualifying. I know that.
Yeah, I know we're the only one to get down track in that night session, so must have the right tune-up. We were doing a good job.
Well, that'll give a moment's pause to these guys. Here comes Jim Bailey, the man whom Rhonda beat out for Rookie of the Year last year in Top Fuel. Burning that eye-watering mix of nitromethane. There in the other lane, Doug Foxworth from Lytle, Texas. Interesting, of the 8 cars in this qualified field, we had 8 different chassis. And among the 7 cars that did not qualify, we had 5 more. Plenty of diversity in Top Fuel.
Doug Foxworth, the #1 qualifier, setting the pace for this entire race.
Tremendous G-forces as they launch. Oh, and problems for Foxworth, who hazed the tires and then has big engine problems, exploding the left rear slick. He is totally on fire, but he keeps it right in the middle of the racetrack.
Doug Foxworth, an amazing driving job, nearly won that round. Let's look one more time at it. You can see he no more than gets off the pad, then right here, boom, there goes the fire. Now, that fire is concentrating on that drag slick, which is only designed to carry about 5 or 6 pounds of internal pressure. Then that slick explodes into the air as the pressure reaches too much. Literally a blowout at 250 miles per hour. Foxworth, with a cool head, steering the car straight down the center line as it continues to go up in a blazing inferno.
There the crew's working on the car. The initial flare in that car was very bright, looked like magnesium.
All the car is okay.
I thought this stuff was over.
It's never over, not in top fuel.
New altitude record for tire rubber up there. That was unbelievable how you again steered the car when it made an instant right-hand turn when that thing blew.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
558 to 551, you were ahead at that point.
Yeah, and it's, it blew up, so I didn't run any faster. Did I get there first, or did
Actually, I do want to tell you, and you may not realize this, if it felt like it fell down on the starting line, it was burning the cylinder head on the left side all the way from the time you launched. It was actually on fire at the quarter mile.
Nice. Well, at least it was all brand new stuff. I mean, it was a brand new block and a brand new cylinder head because we heard it the first run. I mean, not like fresh, I mean like brand new, so it's just been one of those weekends. Did we win or did we lose?
I believe he got around you with the 51.
Once it blew up, I wasn't.
You had other things on your mind. At least you're okay again.
Yes, again, Doug Foxworth has a long history of mechanical bad luck, including blown tires like that one right there, and a complete blowover when the front wheels came right over the back in an aerodynamic accident. There the PTS crew works on the burning rubber on the track. Here's Brett.
Right there, you can see the hole where the magnesium cylinder head started to burn right as Doug Foxworth hit the throttle. And when that magnesium head sends up that bright white flare, you know damage is being done. You can see where the head gasket burned. At that point, oil was being pumped out of the crankcase onto the exhaust headers. That's where the fire started. And at that point, you can see it burned the parachute through the tire. This is the second major tire explosion for Doug Foxworth in a year and a half. And each time he has managed to salvage the race car, despite the engine damage, only with his incredible driving talent.
All right, thank you, Brett. Lost in the excitement, the fact that Jim Bailey actually won that matchup. He will meet Rhonda Hartman in the finals of Top Fuel. Hartman will have lane choice. We'll take another quick break, and when we return, we'll learn who our finalists will be in Pro Stock. Welcome back to Darlington, where the sun is going down on the IHRA Snap-on Tools All-Pro Winternationals, but there is plenty of racing still to come. Semi-final action in the door slammers of Pro Stock. Our first matchup, Harold Denton in the near lane in the Party Time Pontiac Firebird against John Noble of Melville, New York, his 93 Old Cutlass.
Oh, Noble, a great hole shot. 439. He got Denton off the line. But watch the old man steer the car. Horsepower time, 687 for Harold Denton.
What a drive-around job by Harold Denton, oldest man in the field at age 56. Now our other semifinal matchup. In the near lane, the bright red machine of former Pro Stock World Champion Doug Kirk. And in the far lane, young Robert Patrick.
Patrick with 810 cubic inches of forward power as opposed to Doug Kirk, who relies on an 802 cubic inch Oldsmobile engine.
We say mountain motors, we mean mountains, and Doug Kirk gets absolutely left at the starting line by Patrick.
But look at the horsepower on the top end, a 680 for Doug Kirk as he came around him from nowhere.
By 0.3 of a second he was left at the starting line. Nevertheless, Doug Kirk moves into the finals of Pro Stock, where he will meet Harold Denton. Now we move on to the semifinals of Pro Modified. In the near lane, Ed Burnley with his 94 Camaro. In the far lane, Pat Moore in a 68 Camaro. Both of the cars, big motors and naturally aspirated with nitrous oxide injection.
Moore first to stage. Moore first off the line. An incredible hole shot of 4:52 reaction time. He's going to pull him all the way through a 675 to a losing 670. Pat Moore won this, not the car.
Well, I remember when people were wondering about Pat Moore's future in that car, but he is really driving it now. Here is Chuck Peterson in that beautiful 70 Chevelle with the only supercharged mill still in the running. And there's Tommy Mooney with that absolutely immaculate 41 Willys he built himself.
Remember, This will be the nitrous oxide injected car against the supercharged car. A lot of fans like to see this pairing to see whether the supercharger will win or the nitrous oxide.
There is so much that goes into setting up these cars. Pretty good leaves for both drivers. Marginal advantage to Mooney. He's got him at half track. Will it hold up?
Mooney with a 6:59, 208 miles per hour. He is cranking off regular 650s now.
So it should be a great final in Bromont. Tommy Mooney out of Shelby, North Carolina, against Pat Moore from Vienna, Ohio. One more pro class to be decided. This is Alcohol Funny Car. Dennis Bedrosian, the new record holder at this racetrack in the near lane, against world champion Mark Thomas.
Thomas has his hands full and turns on the foul line. Mark Thomas, the world champion, is out of it. Can Bedrosian run another 5? No. 6:12, he'll take that. 233 miles per hour.
Oh, Mark Thomas is probably kicking himself. Watch the Christmas tree, and there is the red light in the far lane. The world champion has driven himself out of it.
You probably didn't realize he went red.
I have no idea he went red. Well, all right. All right. I figured for sure we came in second place.
No, but in this particular case, Mark left
Right,
way
you
early.
can't do that to me. That's not fair.
I just wanted to give you a little nice surprise.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. But it blew the tires off again. I pedaled it hard. I had no idea he went red. I mean, I just went after him and tried to chase him down.
You should have known when Brett came to you with the camera crew that you probably won the matchup there, Dennis. Now here's the other half of our brackets, Von Smith and Butch Kernodle.
Odd hold shot time one more time. Von Smith of 469 is out on Kernodle. Can he hold him? Yes. He wins with a 6:32. Kernodle's, listen to this, 6:23 losing time.
So it will be new record man Dennis Bedrosian going for the sweep with a victory and his matchup against Von Smith in the final of Alcohol Funny Car. And on the starting line, it's getting cold, so they're going to add a little heat to the launch pad. We'll be back for happy hour at Darlington. Here in Darlington, South Carolina, night has fallen, but it is happy hour. Finals time at the IHRA All-Pro Auto Parts Winternationals. Before we get to that, however, here is Big Daddy Don Garland with the year's first edition of Inside Scoop.
One of the latest devices that we've been using in Top Fuel to try to save some money is this little radio. There's a receiving unit mounted in the wing of the car to pick up the signal. You get these things at Radio Shack, and we just send a tone. You could talk to the drivers, but it's so noisy, it's hard to get communication that way, so we just use tones. If we see something happening on the starting line that the driver should lift, we punch the button. Sends a tone, goes into the driver's helmet through an earpiece. This causes him to lift. Like if you've got a couple of cylinders out and you're going to hydraulic a motor, this is important. The driver doesn't know that. We do from the starting line. It has saved us a lot of money.
All right, thank you, Big. Proof positive that sometimes it's the simplest things that can have the biggest impact. There's Rhonda Hartman trying to follow up her Rookie of the Year campaign with a win here at Darlington. And there's Jim Bailey, who benefited from that big meltdown by Doug Foxworth. Brett Kepner spoke with him afterward.
You got out of the throttle halfway down the track when you saw Foxworth driving away.
Doug Foxworth was on a really good run, and all of a sudden his car made a move when this thing dropped a cylinder. It was driving away from me, and I said, well, you know, that's history. There's no sense busting any parts. And then I saw the flash of fire. I thought, well, it's time to get back after this thing and try to get a wind light.
See, Jim Bailey got that wind light, and he is now in the final against Rhonda Hartman.
Both of these cars have been running 530s. Anything could happen.
With a tremendous burst of blue flame, both are away. Hazing the tires is Bailey. Hartman will take the victory.
Hartman with another 530, 537. Couple that with a 487 reaction time. She takes the points lead. She's going to be tough this year.
No question about it. She said consistency wins races, and she has really made a statement here today at Darlington.
As we watch the replay, you can see exactly what happened. Jim Bailey went up in smoke. It was over.
The world has to hand it to you on this one. 6 consecutive runs down this racetrack from the opening day to the final round, 537, like a broken record.
I got to thank my dad and my fiance, John Smith, and my whole family, my mom and dad, for their support, and the whole crew's done a great job. And to run consistent on this track is just wonderful. And I I hope we have a wonderful year. This is just a great start for the 1995 season.
No question about it. Rhonda Hartman is the real deal. Now we move on to the Pro Stock Final. In the near lane, Doug Kirk. In the far lane, Harold Denton. The first man in the sixes on this racetrack against the quickest man ever on this racetrack. Problems for Denton. Give it to Kirk.
Doug Kirk will cruise through with a 678, 204 miles per hour. This guy continues to run remarkable numbers.
Harold Denton on the right side actually got the start on Doug Kirk, but problems right away as Kirk drives to the victory.
Unbelievable. Not only are you the first man in the 670s, you're the only man in the 670s. You led this event from start to finish, and like I said, gee, that kind of sounds like Doug Kirk in 91 and 93, doesn't it?
I tell you what, I'm really happy because I tell you, Budds Creek, Maryland, I had room 113 at the motel, and I didn't qualify. This weekend, I'm in 213. I've carried this in-car camera I don't know how many times, and I've never won with it. So I've overcome a lot of superstitions. They're all out the window. Now we're ready to race.
Well, that's good to hear, Doug, particularly with regard to our onboard camera. 2 finals to go. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Happy Hour at Darlington International Dragway. The All-Pro Auto Parts Winternationals are coming to their climax. Before we get to the finals, it's time to introduce a new feature here on our ESPN coverage of IHRA drag racing. Here's Ted Jones and Professor Roy Hill with a look at some of the technology of drag racing with the race mechanic.
Without question, one of the most important parts on a pro stock race car, or any drag car for that matter, has to be the shock absorbers, like are on this demonstration model here. You see the Coney shock without the coilover, and then the popular coilover design. But the new kid on the block in pro stock drag racing is this shock absorber, which has an electric wire hanging out of it. To find out the story on that and exactly what's going on, let's talk to our race mechanic, Roy Hill, who's sitting in the driver's seat here. Roy, what's going on with this electric wire hanging out of this shock absorber?
Ted, that's something new that Coney's designed that really has helped the pro stock racers, not only pro stock, but sportsman racers too. We can adjust the shock going down the track. It leaves on a solid suspension, and when we shift gears, it hits this micro switch, runs through the wire, over to a timer, into this brain box that Coney's designed.
Now, can you change the settings between races?
Yes, you can. We can watch a car make a run in front of us. If I tell my crew chief that I think we need to change it, he can reach in and change the knob automatically.
So you can actually change the shock setting and the entire suspension of the car and how it's going to react just moments before you stage.
Ted, we've designed another switch that we mount right here. I can actually do it after I've gone into a gear. If I want to go back and set a different setting, I can do that myself manually, but you've got to be quick.
That's the Roy Hill switch.
This is what we teach.
And that's the race mechanic for this week.
Well, if you're going to be changing your suspension settings in the middle of a 6-second run, you'd better be quick. Pro Modified final now. Pat Moore in the near lane, Tommy Mooney in the far lane.
Moore has a big problem. He's been running 670s. Mooney's been running 650s, and it looks like Pat Moore with a nice hole shot of 445. Anybody's race. Tommy Mooney does it again, 658, 209 miles per hour. He ETD.
No question about it. Consistency wins drag races. Now our final, if you will, alcohol funny car. There is Von Smith from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Vice President of Atomic City Tool Company. There is the man everybody's been talking about all day, Dennis Bedrosian, new track record holder for both ET and top speed in the class.
But Bedrosian has not been back into the 5-second areas. That means Von Smith is very much in this race.
Give the whole shot to Bedrosian in the far lane, and he extends his lead from half track.
Wire-to-wire win for Dennis Bedrosian, a 613, 230 miles per hour. And Bedrosian is going pretty fast right here. He should be making the turn off the end of the drag strip out into the field.
No parachute was the initial indication. There's lots of open space out there. Meanwhile, here's a look at the run. You see the chute pop on Von Smith's machine. No sign of a parachute. Very difficult to bring these cars down from 230 mile an hour speeds. And there you see him going off the end with the brakes locked up through the fence and into the pasture.
It looks like he may have had a stuck throttle, Bob.
Man, what a ride.
We've been doing this for a long time, and nothing's ever come easy yet, so there's no reason why this should have.
In the middle of darkness, standing in a cow pasture somewhere in South Carolina, but you're a national event winner.
I guess that's good.
Well, Dennis Bedrosian can laugh about it, but after jumping a levee and plowing through a fence, the damage appears to be pretty light. We'll be back to wrap things up from Darlington. Back at Darlington, Dennis Bedrosian pulls out of the pasture. We've mentioned the importance of Darlington. Consider this. Last year, of our 8 Pro Class finalists, 5 went on to either first or second in the World Championship. So these points are important, Ted.
We have brand new leaders that we normally don't see here, and whose name is obviously missing? Doug Herbert. In Pro Stock, what name is missing from the top 5? Billy Huff. It's going to be a different season indeed. Over in Pro Modified, there's a big name obviously missing, Scotty Cannon. He's all the way down in 9th place. But in Alcohol Funny Car, the world champion, Mark Thomas, is in 3rd place.
It's going to be an interesting year on the IHRA trail, and we hope you'll be with us every step of the way. If you'd like to subscribe to Drag Review, call 1-800-554-9000. I'm Bob Barsha for Ted Jones and Brett Kepner. Thanks for being with us. So long from Darlington, South Carolina.